Well-known localization author Natalie Kelly recently noted on her blog that many of the best performing localization professionals she meets are those who come with game localization experience, and their successes can and should be readily applied to localization in other industries. So expect there will be much you can learn as our next speaker, Margita Lajitic, explains how her games localization team adapted to fully remote work. Margita, the time is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Adam. Hello, everybody. Nice to have you here today with us. As Adam mentioned, my name is Margita. I'm a localization specialist at Nordeus, and today I will talk how we at Nordeus adapted to fully remote work with the start of pandemics last year. So I'm going to share my screen in a moment. Alrighty, you can see it, right? Okay.
Looks good.
Cool. So let's start about our agenda for today. So I'll talk a bit more about Nordeus, about our games, how we as a localization team function at Nordeus, what were the opportunities we took from work from home mode, and finally, I'll draw some conclusions based on our learnings. In the end, we'll leave some time for any questions, ideas, concerns, suggestions, whatever you might have. So let's start with Nordeus. We were founded in 2010 by 3 engineers who were young back in the day and who had been working for Microsoft in Copenhagen, Denmark. And then they decided to come back home to Belgrade and combine their love for sports, and that is football or soccer in particular, and games. We're an independent mobile games company, and we are based in Belgrade, Serbia. And that means that we have more than 170 people from over 20 countries, normally all under one roof in our state-of-the-art office in Belgrade, Serbia. At this very moment, we have 3 live games. So I'll like to go back to our beginnings or basics. So shortly after we were founded, within less than a year, our owners launched Top 11, which is the world's most successful mobile sports game. And last May, Top 11 celebrated its 10th birthday, which is, as you can imagine, a huge milestone in our industry. We've launched Golden Boot in 2017 on mobile, but we were also an early adopter of Facebook Messenger games. So the launch of Golden Boot on this platform followed 2 years later, which is 2019. Last year in 2020, we launched Heroic on mobile, and we also have several other projects in development. A bit more context about our live games. With more than 230 million downloads up to date and almost 11 years on the market. As said, Top 11 is the world's most successful mobile sports game. It is available on iOS, Android, and web, and the face of the game, as you can see on the icon, is Jose Mourinho. And the game is available in 31 languages, and this includes different variants of English and Spanish, for example. Golden Boot is available on iOS, Android, and Facebook Messenger games in 18 languages. And lastly, Heroic is available on iOS and Android in 15 languages. So you might wonder how we handle all these projects and languages. So as a localization team, we're actually integrated into production teams, and we're involved in development and content creation for all our projects. And we're actually part of the process from the very beginning, starting from the initial design all the way to monitoring of live content and basically acting if there is any escalation, we act upon live issues. We are localization advocates, obviously, and context seekers. So basically, we have to understand context around each feature that we create and build in Nordeus. We have to be familiar with the fantasy behind it, and we have to basically be able to predict and prevent potential localization challenges early in development. And I have to say that we collaborate with our vendors who provide localization services, so our in-house translation efforts are minimal. Now, you might be wondering how many people it takes to handle these, so let's run a quick poll, Gala, if you can. What are your thoughts? How many people do we have on the localization team? Do you think it's a one-man show, or 2 to 3 people, or not more than 4 to 5, or more than 5? Let's see. I guess shouldn't be a tough question. Okay, so we have quite a few responses with more than 5 people, and 2 to 3 people is around a third of the audience. So I guess you guys were close enough. We have 2 people on the team. So you might be wondering how we handle all these work. So let's take a closer look into how we actually operate. Our live production basically follows 2-week sprint cycles, so fast turnaround time is crucial for us. And our daily work relies heavily on synchronous face-to-face communication with other disciplines such as UX designers, game designers, developers, UI artists, producers, community managers, player support, different marketing positions such as product marketing managers, video producers, user acquisition, user research, and so on and so forth. And before the pandemic, our way of work relied heavily on chats in the office and getting things done quickly and on the go. So obviously moving to full remote work presented a new challenge, or I prefer the term opportunity to acquire new skills. So if we turn back time and go back to March last year, when we shifted to full remote work overnight, and when I say overnight, I literally mean it, because I believe it was Thursday when we had a work from home test from obviously homes. And the same afternoon, we had an all hands meeting where our CEO communicated that we'd be moving to work from home indefinitely, or at least until this is all over. So we had Friday to set up our home offices and get all the equipment we needed. And this included laptops, monitors, keyboards, even desks and chairs. And I have to say that the support and flexibility we had from our company during all this period has been astonishing, really. So given the way of working we had while we were still in the office, we had the advantage of being in the digital environment. So for us, it was more of an adaptation or fine-tuning rather than a complete U-turn. And I have to say that back in the day, we had some processes and documentation in place, but we relied on immediate chats. During the adaptation to the new work mode, we've spotted several opportunities that we could do and we could take in order to adapt to work from home easier. And these are streamlined documentation, thought-through processes, knowledge sharing, and early involvement. So let's see now what each of these means in our environment. As far as streamlined documentation is concerned, having one unique source of truth is a must for us, and that's what we figured along the way. This is especially important having in mind that we are a super fast-paced environment. And with so many disciplines involved and synchronous communication limited to Zoom and Slack, we needed a centralized place where all relevant information is contained, and it was really a lifesaver for us. So in our case, this turned into Happio, which is an intranet solution for Google Workspace. And it really reduced the noise and frustration around having to talk to multiple people to get relevant information. And additionally, it allowed us to have async communication, which practically reduced the amount of constant sense of urgency. Before we started working from home, we had some documentation in place, but it wasn't designed for async communication as it is now. So let's say now if I'm out of office for a few days, I really don't have to worry about missing out an important piece of information that is relevant for my part of job. And I know that I can rely on documentation for full context. When it comes to thought through processes, removing unnecessary dependencies helped us get more time. So you might wonder, how is that possible? Because a day has only 24 hours. But it actually means that taking a bird's eye view at our processes indicated a lot about our communication and back and forths that were redundant. And we also got some fresh perspectives from other disciplines, which often spotted the logical habits that we had and that we followed. So in collaboration with our producers and other disciplines, we managed to spot these flaws and optimize our processes. And for example, we worked with our engineers to develop a tool that enabled us in the localization team to get character limits without waiting for their input. So basically, they built us a tool that empowered us to do it ourselves. Additionally, we improved communication with our marketing team by setting up an intuitive system in Jira. And the workflow is actually designed to trigger fields they need to fill in so that we at the localization team can collect all needed input at once. And this enabled us to provide quality translation without the need to go back for additional context. As far as knowledge sharing is concerned, we basically started talking to other disciplines more, and we started talking to them about hows and whys behind our processes. And quite frequently, these opened up fruitful conversations. So first of all, other disciplines got to understand the impact of their work on other teams' work. Basically, they got to see the bigger picture and the consequences of certain acts that they've been doing turned from unconscious into conscious. Secondly, as other disciplines also tend to have fresh perspectives on someone's problem, we basically along the way realized that some processes and workflows that we've been following turned obsolete and that we actually don't need them anymore. And for example, what happened to the localization team in particular is that in one of the conversations that I mentioned before, we identified with our QA team an opportunity to automate our localization testing, which can potentially reduce the needed time from several hours into an hour or even less. So I guess this can turn quite handy, right? And lastly, early involvement is something that we've been advocating ever since, but with the rise of remote work, it's never become more relevant for us. And we're now part of the design process as early as brainstorming starts. And this means for us that we can pick up on context very early. And we are also able to predict localization constraints as early as UI artists or UX start working on a feature or on a feature. Additionally, this means that we get to prevent the majority of potential localization bugs because we can check the majority of things ourselves and thinking from the localization perspective. And also, it seems that including other disciplines early in the process has had a positive impact on motivation and engagement to work on a certain feature and basically get more hands-on. And apparently for collaboration to work, we had to find a tool that could replace our sticky notes and on whiteboards that we relied heavily while we were still in the office a year ago. So after some testing and talking to different teams internally, we ended up with Miro, which is an online visual collaboration platform for teamwork. And we also in localization team use it like daily. So be it collaboration or just organizing our thoughts, I guess it's really hard to imagine our workday without it now. To conclude, I'd like to share that given the nature of the gaming industry, we were extremely lucky to be able to switch our business to fully remote within just a day. And overall, it's been an organizational change that cascaded down into every single team, including us in localization. And I'd have to say that the global pandemic sped up some learnings that would probably have taken more time if it hadn't been for it. And that today, more than ever, the balance between effective communication and exchange of information on one hand, and the agility of processes on the other seem to be an omnipresent topic that's yet to evolve. So I'm excited to see what the future holds for us in the next 3 months or 6 months or a year. As a sum up to this session, I'm curious to see what your thoughts are about the opportunities in your organization. So Gala, if you could run another poll, what do you think are the opportunities in your company? Is it streamlined communication, thought through processes, knowledge sharing, early involvement, any of the topics I discussed today, or something else? Please share it in the chat. Excited to see what your responses are.
I'll give it about 10 more seconds, Margita.
Okay, perfect. Let's see.
And don't forget, you actually have to hit submit once you.
Interesting. So 41% for knowledge sharing and early involvement, so nice. And thought through processes, and I guess we have least votes for streamlined documentation, which probably means that the majority of attendees here actually have really good documentation. So we might exchange some experiences here. Okay, thank you for your results. For your responses. I hope this presentation triggered some ideas that could help you and your organizations get more efficient. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. So.
Great. So if you haven't already put your questions in, first of all, thank you very much, Margita. If you haven't already entered any questions into the Q&A, feel free to do so right now. First, Margita, we have a very quick question. What's the name of the program you used to save life from Google Workspace?
From Google Workspace, it's Happio. It's actually abbreviation of happy people.
And how do you spell? So that's HAPEO?
Double P-E-O.
Happeo. Great.
Yes.
And then a question from Ginny Bromberg. What has been the most prominent process change in your opinion, and how?
So the most prominent is definitely streamlined documentation, because with the agile way of working, we basically talked in the offices and resolved um, all the questions that we had during development. We resolved them on the go, just like talking to relevant people, and basically we didn't need to document things as much. But that turned out to be an obstacle when we switched to work from home, because we were limited to practically Zoom and Slack, and then just thinking about people who miss different pieces of information for their job was a big obstacle. So we resolved it with streamlining documentation and basically creating the master docs, so to say.
Great. Next question. If I still need to make some of these changes in my company, what tips would you have to help me get started?
Good question. Thank you. I would say that probably, starting with one thing at a time. And basically, you just take some piece of paper and brainstorm what are the things you feel are pain points, and what are the things that need improvement, and identify them, and then start talking to other teams and other disciplines, see their perspective. And quite often you will actually see that they feel the same, but they just have different perspective. So basically, just by talking to other disciplines, you will also get their buy-in to do something, to fix something, to improve something. And I will also say that it's quite handy to handle one thing at a time, because processes take time to change and pick up on pace, and people need some time to adapt to them.
Great tips. So another question, what, if anything, is actually better than it was before COVID?
Again, turning to documentation for us, at least. So now, as I mentioned, I know I can go on vacation, chill, completely switch off, and then once I'm back, I can just find everything in one place without going through hundreds of emails, hundreds of Slack messages, and probably who knows what else.
Great. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Good one. Let me give it a thought. I think that I wouldn't change much in retrospective, because I guess it's always easy to talk about things in hindsight, but I just wish we spotted some of these things sooner rather than later, maybe even before this whole COVID thing started. So I guess that's the only I wish thing.
So building off of that, which of these changes do you think you will keep when you return back to the office? Or is there anything that will, in particular, that will return to the way it was?
I pretty much think that we'll keep the majority of these, because we adapted to another way of working, and now it's like our new normal, our new way of working that we rely heavily on. So I'm pretty positive that we will keep the, like, let's say 90% of this. So probably what would change is we will probably again get more relaxed about documenting, or maybe even like removing Zoom and Slack as the main medium, and rely again back on face-to-face communication. But I believe all the processes and everything that we've set up in the past year is pretty solid and efficient so that we can just keep it.
Very good. We have another question from Annette Hemera in the chat. And Annette, correct me if I misphrase this. How efficiently and fast is legislation able to keep up with industry trends in game localization? So this is more specific just to game localization in general. And she's talking about security issues, identity theft, etc. Is legislation far behind? Is it okay, or is it on point?
So I guess like that depends on different markets, because legislation about putting your games on different markets is very different. So you have to adapt to it, and basically it's the game that adapts, not the legislation. However, with the rise of gaming community, I believe it's been faster and faster in the past years, especially in Serbia, where legislations are being designed more to follow the trends of the IT industry. So I'm optimistic that it's going to be faster and faster. I hope I answered the question.
She says thank you in the chat, so it sounds like you did. So excellent. Okay. If you have, if there's nothing else to add or no final word, then we will wrap up there. Thank you so very much for your time, Margita.